the queen, yeah, that's Queen Esquire. Legal trouble, she getting you out the fire. Another day and she solving another case, cause she litigate with dignity and grace. She the queen, yeah, that's Queen Esquire. Legal trouble, she getting you out the fire. Another day and she solving another case, cause she litigate with dignity and grace.
Excuse me, what is your name?
Brit Barbie.
Look at you. I want to rap. Give me beats like oh.
Period 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 period
Okay.
period period
Okay.
period
I like that. I can work with that. I can work with that. Listen, I am African, period R, period O, and I eat my food with spices, not just black pepper and salt. Some of us live in mansions, not the wooden house with red. Black is king, royalty. So the rest, pay respect. That's on.
Period period.
What?
Period period.
Hey.
Period period.
Okay.
Period
Okay, it has to. It's enough. It is okay. Keep quiet. I say it is. You are talking too much. Keep quiet. It is okay. Oh my God. Excuse me, what is your name?
Brit Barbie.
Look at you. I want to rap. Give me beats like oh.
Hello, litigators and opinionators. Court is now in session. Guys, let's get into this story. This story is crazy to me, and I know a lot of you have already heard about this story, so it's an old story, but the underlying stories about at least one of these inmates who escaped the New Orleans jail is very eerie. Let's just say that. So let's just get into the background of this. You're probably wondering, who are these people on the screen? Well, guys, these are 10 inmates, and pretty dangerous inmates, who escaped the New Orleans jail, okay? And let's just go over who they are. So Corey Boyd is right here. Then we've got Dinkin Dennis, Jermaine Donald, Derek Groves, Antoine Massey, then Robert Moody, Kendall Miles, Gary Price, Leo Tate, and Linton Van Buren. And let's just go a little bit of the background. These inmates are all in New Orleans jail. Some of them have been charged with unaliving a lot of people, robbery, you name it. So there's some of the dangerous individuals here. But I want to really hone in on this, the gentleman right here, Derek Groves, today, that we're going to talk about, because some of his underlying story to me is very eerie, and it kind of sheds light on Louisiana and the New Orleans prison and the officers that work in that particular location in Louisiana. There's a lot of corruption in Louisiana. So that's why I really wanted to get in about this story, because this story is absolutely crazy. Now, just give you a little background about New Orleans jail. From what I am told and the information that I researched, the New Orleans jail is very corrupt. Has a very poor conditions there. Even during the time when they had Hurricane Katrina, the warden there told them not to evacuate the inmates. So a lot of those inmates ended up drowning and dying because of the hurricane and the warden not moving them. So there's been a lot of very eerie, evil things that have happened at this New Orleans jail. There's not a lot of prison guards there that secure the area. In particular, there is allegations in this case that a janitor basically stopped the water in a toilet, which led to these inmates escaping. And one of the inmates basically put a knife, or kind of like they made this homemade kind of jail-made knife, and said if he didn't turn off the water, they were going to unalive him. And that situation is very odd, because a lot of times when we have people who come in and clean or stuff like that, they're usually accompanied by a prison guard or something like that. So a lot of people kind of started questioning and side-eyeing this story. It appears as though it's a cover-up, as though the chief in that location knows of some information about her particular officers who are involved in aiding and abetting these 10 inmates. But let's go into the background of the story before we really hone in on one of these inmates that I really wanted to talk about today. So just giving you some background information. Just after midnight Friday, a corrections monitoring technician in New Orleans stepped away for food. When he left, the Orleans Justice Center had been in lockdown since 10:30 p.m., as it usually was, with inmates expected to be in their cells for the night. But in the technician's absence, several inmates began tampering with the door of a cell, Delta 1106. And I want to let you guys know, in the New Orleans jail, there's very poor conditions as it relates to the jail doors. For example, a lot of the inmates are aware that some of those doors, you can just pull on them very roughly. If you continue to pull on them, they'll eventually give way and they will open up. Now, this has been a very poor condition of this jail for many years, and they never, basically the officers and the leadership never took any initiative to fix this very flawed and dangerous situation, where they knew that all they had to do was just tug and pull repeatedly on these doors and the doors would give way. So basically, the inmates, knowing this faulty door, they just tugged and pulled until it broke open and they snuck into the handicapped cell. And then a man squeezed through a small hole in the wall behind a metal toilet. Now, this is very suspect, because how did this small hole get behind the toilet? It seems as though somebody helped them before this happened. It wasn't just the janitor turning off the water. There was already a hole there. So it appears as though someone else had already helped them open that. And it was somebody that either worked for the jail, police officers, or somebody else. But they're blaming this all on the janitor, which a lot of people are questioning the legitimacy of whether it's just this janitor's fault. So another person followed, and another, and 7 more would make their way through the tiny opening as 10 inmates fled from the New Orleans jail and into a warm, muggy night. They left a message on the wall on the way out, and it said, "Too easy, LOL," it read. And it's funny, they didn't even spell the right "to" right. It's supposed to be TOO. And you can tell these individuals have no education, which is very sad. But anyways, the men, the youngest, 19 years old, and the oldest was 42 years old. Wow, that was the range of men that had escaped, from range 19 to 42. They faced a wide array of charges, including murder, aggravated assault with a firearm, domestic abuse, battery. They had prepared for their escape and possibly had help, officials said. Toiletries left behind had been used to remove the toilet and a sink, as well as bolts in the cell. At least one steel bar protecting the plumbing fixtures appeared to have been intentionally cut using a tool, according to law enforcement. So this is very interesting, guys. There was a steel bar that was protecting the plumb fixture that was intentionally cut. This right here seems as though somebody who was working for the jail had intentionally cut this bar. A lot of these jailmates, they do make homemade tools in jail, but I just don't think there was something strong enough to cut that steel plumbing fixture. I think it was somebody who worked for the jail. Either law enforcement was involved in this, which is interesting. And again, there's a lot of corruption in the law enforcement in New Orleans. A lot, as you'll see the backstory of one of these inmates. So I wouldn't be surprised if one of these inmates paid a pretty hefty amount of money to one of these jail guards, and that basically those jail guards are not going to be charged because the chief in that location is blaming this and pinning it all on the janitor. And if possible, this janitor probably is not even a part of it. But again, I digress. At around 1 a.m., nearly 40 minutes after their escape began, they left the jail through a loading door where supplies were brought in, sprinting and leaping off the dock to freedom in a blur of gray, beige, and orange. One wore a blue hat, 2 others had orange shoes, and one man tripped over a bundle of fabric he was carrying before getting up and running out of the camera's range. Now, I want to let you guys know, one of the inmates had called his mother and family members in the jail. So they already had been planning this, guys, the night before. They already knew they were going to do this. They had been discussing it. And one of them did call a family member the night before, and they told their family member to be out waiting for them at, a specific time frame when they were supposed to plan this escape. They said, they told this family member, wait for me outside at around 11 something, right? And so the family member had waited out there. That's how the cops caught wind of one of the individuals of the family members that aided in a bet. And that woman is now, she's being charged with a felony for aiding in a bet. And she's now, her bail is set in the millions. So there was at least 7 people that have been arrested for aiding and abetting, for example, bringing food, transportation, clothes, you name it. So moving on. A group scaled a fence along Interstate 10 using blankets they brought to shield themselves from barbed wire. They really thought about this, guys. They brought blankets so that they could protect themselves from the barbed wire as they jumped the fence. They was really carefully thought this thing out, y'all. The inmates dashed across train tracks and multiple lanes of traffic on their way to nearby neighborhood where they shed their jail jumpsuits. During a routine head count at 8:30 a.m., so guys, they had like at least an 8-hour count ahead of the officers. So I feel like that 8 hours could have gave them time to travel to the border, get into Mexico. These people are not that smart. A lot of them remained in New Orleans. I don't know what they were thinking, but if you're going to escape jail, why would you remain in the same location where you're bound to be caught? That made no sense. 8 hour ahead, you had an 8 hour count ahead of the officers discovering you're gone, and you'd stay in New Orleans. Make it make sense. Okay. So by 8:30 the next day, right, officials finally discovered that multiple inmates had escaped. The missing inmates first reported to be 11 men before it was later corrected to 10, triggered a widespread manhunt across Louisiana and 7 nearby states: Texas, Mississippi, Arkansas, Georgia, Oklahoma, and Tennessee. Their escape also unleashed several suspensions, questions of lack of transparency, and a flurry of accusations about who's to blame. A fluid situation or a dangerous one. As authorities at the jail activated emergency protocols, the city of New Orleans spent the morning of May 16 unaware that 10 armed and dangerous men had escaped. The public, guys, was not notified until 11 a.m. the next day. That's insane. So people could have been unalived. There was witnesses that testified against these people in court. There's the prosecutors who prosecuted them in court. These people are all sleeping in their house, not realizing that the very people that they put in prison is now free. That's crazy, y'all. Almost 10 hours after the inmates have fled and 3 hours after the sheriff learned that they were missing. That's crazy, y'all. Crazy. So a city-wide alert wouldn't be sent until 2:30 p.m. Down the road from Orleans Justice Center, the staff at the district attorney's office was unaware of the situation unfolding at the jail. Now, here's a photo of the escape route, allegedly, okay? So this is where they basically unscrewed this. And again, where would you think inmates would have tools to do all this? There's somebody that helped them, obviously, okay? And they put in here, too easy, LOL. They claim that allegedly they got out of this, but some people question this because it's like, how did 10 men squeeze into this little area? It just, I don't know, you guys. I have questions how they squeeze into this little area with all these, with the bars here. But I digress, this is what they claim. This photo from the New Orleans Parish Sheriff's Office shows an inmate cell at the New Orleans Justice Center in New Orleans. Almost a dozen inmates escaped from the center. Orleans Parish District Attorney Jameson Williams said he walked into the office Friday morning not knowing his office had convicted were on the run. That's even dangerous because the district attorney is in danger, and his employees, because they're the very people that prosecuted them, okay? Williams himself had prosecuted Derek Groves. Ooh, one of the escapees who had been convicted of murdering 2 men. And this live is really going to narrow in on Derek Groves. That's the person that I really want to talk about today, but I just want to give you a background story before I get into his particular story, because his story is absolutely insane, you guys. His story is what really made me get more fascinated with this situation, because I'm like, oh my God, y'all. Wait till we get to that. Okay, so the people in the office put people in jail. These inmates don't like them, Williams told WDSU. The fact that these inmates are less than 100 feet away and they gotten out, no one rings an alarm. That's deeply problematic. He added that 2 of his employees have left town, y'all, because they were worried for their safety. Yeah, guys. So after 10 hours after the public not being notified, victims not being notified, district attorney not being notified, y'all, there were victims that fled town when they found out. Witnesses fled the town. They literally got out of freaking Dodge. And district attorneys, they packed their bags and left New Orleans, y'all. This is crazy. So they're in hiding right now. And at this time, 10 of them are on the run at this time when I'm reading this article, but things have since changed. Anyways, let's get back to it. He added that 2 of his employees had fled town as we went over. Williams said his office was notified around 11 and immediately began calling witnesses. Some of the escaped men, he said, were known to have threatened witnesses in order to evade prosecution. So that's crazy, you guys. A lot of these people who had escaped, they had threatened the victims before they testified, right? So they're so lucky this situation did not turn out worse than it would have, that these inmates did not go directly to the witnesses' houses and unalive them. This crazy, guys. Crazy, right? Around 11:13 a.m., he called Deputy U.S. Marshal Brian Fair and Captain Rodney with Troop NOLA for help and said neither had received contact from the sheriff's office. He said it was a very dangerous situation, made more dangerous because the poor leadership and lack of transparency. And there seems to be a lot of that happening in New Orleans, guys. It's a kind of, in my opinion, a rundown city. Very corrupt law enforcement, corrupt district attorneys. The jail system is very poor quality. It's just a very sad place. Oh God, the officers are involved in a lot of the criminal activity there, and they put hits out on civilians, you guys. It's just crazy over there. I wouldn't feel safe even living in New Orleans because the officers there are so corrupt, and a lot of their corruption is buried under the rug. And this situation with the 10 individuals escaping is shedding light on a lot of the corruption that is going on in New Orleans that is not publicized in the news. So a lot of us don't know about all of the corruption that's happening in New Orleans until this situation came out. So anyways, the officer said it notified the U.S. Marshals, and then Huston called it a fluid situation as authorities worked to get a handle on 1,400 people in the New Orleans Justice Center. So they were still trying to control 1,400 other inmates and make sure other inmates weren't trying to escape too, because now we had a faulty door that was discovered. I think these inmates already knew about this faulty door for a long time, and that's how they facilitated this whole plan in the first place. Okay. When this went down, our first concern is to find out who these folks are, confirm. Then we've got to lock down the whole jail and make sure nobody else is missing. Hudson said, we are investigating our own to find out exactly what happened and where those laps were. Not alerting the public and press immediately, Williams argued, has only helped the inmates escape. Wow. Wow, that's crazy, y'all. The first priority in any escape must be to immediate capture of the inmates, but that effort cannot come at the expense of timely notification. The first inmate captured was Kendall Miles. He was arrested at 11 a.m. shortly after the public and district attorney had been notified. Miles had been hiding under a car at a hotel parking garage, New Orleans, law enforcement said. So guys, within a few short hours later, Kendall had been found. And then they had found pretty much 5 or at least 7 other inmates, you guys, in the last week. Now it's down to 2 of them already that are left. And the 2 that are out there at large are some of the most dangerous of them all, okay? Now they're pointing fingers at each other. There's 4 supervisors, 36 staff members were working at the time of the escape. And the sheriff's officer said 3 jail employees had been suspended without pay because of this. The outcome of an internal investigation Friday, it's unclear why they were subject to the disciplinary action. So they're going around, the cops are firing people. They're doing investigations and stuff, trying to find out who is at fault. Williams called the escape a complete failure of the most basic responsibilities entrusted to a sheriff or jail administrator. And then the governor was like, they said the department was underfunded, understaffed, and underpaid. And that was from Louisiana Governor Jeff Landry. He said, this is what happens when George Sorors fund New Orleans elections. That's true. It's like a very kind of poor crafted jail. So let's try to find out who was captured first. This one's Corey. This one's Dendrick. This one is Jermaine, Derek Groves, Antoine Massey, Robert Moody. Right here. So Kendall right here, he was a complete fool right here in the green. He was the very first person captured at 11:13, y'all. He just hiding under a car somewhere. Boy, bye. He had no family, no support that came out to help him. But basically, all these individuals on this bottom row have been captured, and the first 3 individuals here have been captured already as of today. It took about a week to capture most of these men, but these 2 right here are alleged to be some of the most dangerous ones of them all that are left. And we really want to hone in on the 4th individual here, Derek Groves. We're going to get into his story. Antoine Massey is a hot mess too. This man here, he had witnessed a lot of tragedy in front of him. He saw his father unalived in front of him. And apparently, I guess he had some affiliations with Lil Wayne, and Lil Wayne also had experienced his father being unalived. But Derek Groves' story, y'all, is very tragic that I want to talk about today. But before we get into his story, let's read a little bit of this article, and then we'll move on to his story. Let's see if there's anything else in here they have to say. Chief of Corrections Jay Mollett, he blamed the security breach on facilities infrastructure, which is true. A third of the security cameras in the facility are inoperable. So can you see, like, there is so much erosion in this jail. The cameras don't work. The doors are faulty. The jail is literally falling apart. And the community in New Orleans is very poor. There's not a lot of funding that goes into establishing and readjusting the security within these jails, and they just literally are in poor quality. They're falling apart, and that means there's a huge security breach, because not only just the jail cameras are inoperable, the doors don't really work well. They're easily discharged. That's what happened in here. But even like the toilets are falling apart, guys. The walls are falling apart, and this will breed a situation like this. This situation was inevitable. It was going to happen eventually, because the government over there, the leadership in the sheriff's department, the funding was lacking in that area to renovate these jails. They needed to improve the security system and the quality of these jails, and they had failed to do that. And that is what led to this breach in the first place. Of course, there were individuals involved that were internally working for the jail that facilitated, but I feel like with or without the help of these other individuals, I feel like this was going to happen regardless, because of the poor quality of these jails in New Orleans. So they said that, okay, a third of the security systems did not work. 3 of the cameras in the unit from which the escape occurred were not working. They identified that they had a large number of high security individuals in a minimum custody facility, which is insane, guys. Why would you house some of the most dangerous inmates in a low security, low monitored air facility? That's insane. That's poor leadership at best, okay? At a Friday news conference, Hudson, who was running for re-election, said the escape was coordinated, but hinted there was more than 3 meets the eye in the investigation. I think this guy, Hudson, needs to be removed, because his leadership is very poor here. It shows that he does not care about renovating the security in these jails, which means he poses a danger on the entire community. There's witnesses whose lives were at stake. We have district attorneys whose lives were at stake. They're just lucky that these inmates didn't get to them, because that could have been a situation, okay? Why did it happen just right now, right in the middle, as we were getting ready to start this sheriff's race? Oh my God, this is very suspicious. So Hudson is into the conspiracy. He's saying, why, when the elections are coming, all of a sudden this escape happens? He thinks it's some conspiracy that, you know, maybe there were some inmates or some jail officers involved, or people internally involved that facilitated this so that they can get rid of the sheriff. I don't know, guys. I feel like the sheriff just wasn't doing her job all this time, which led to this, okay? That's just my opinion. Okay. So 2 more men, Len Davis and Robert Moody, had been arrested as of Friday evening. Dennis was previously charged with armed robbery with a firearm, and Moody, he had previously been charged with aggravated second-degree battery, among others. This is crazy. These people are violent who got let go, who basically escaped. These people could have wreaked some havoc. We're lucky that we don't hear any deaths yet. And I say yeah, because 2 of them are still out and abroad, okay? Analyst law enforcement chief says that this is unacceptable and blah, blah, blah. They're saying all this stuff, but y'all, I don't believe it. I don't know. I don't believe it. Now I want to kind of look at a video. I want to see if there is a video of the escape, which there is, but let me pull it up. It's crazy to me, guys, that this happened. Let's see. Where is it? Let's see if we can find it in here. Okay. There's somewhat of a video, but it's not. I'm going to show you guys on real quickly. Can you guys even see my screen? No, yeah, you guys could see the 10 that are still there. I'm trying to find the video of it, guys, of what happened. Let's see. Let's see. I don't think this news video really does. But let's give props to the cops because they did find them really quickly. They found them really fast, actually, so that's a good thing. Let's see. Okay. So this is kind of like a quick news footage of what happened. So we can take a look at this.
Tonight, these stunning images from inside a New Orleans jail cell where 10 inmates, some charged with murder, escaped, sparking an urgent citywide manhunt. The toilet dislodged from a cell wall, exposing an opening. Scrawled on the wall above, "We innocent and too easy," with an arrow toward the hole where they escaped, out of view of the officer on duty. Authorities say it happened just after midnight when the inmates broke a lock on a cell door.
Hello, how are you? My name is Lerone Kuntz. I'm a former correction officer, and
I don't want to hear what he has to say. Okay, so let's kind of skip over him.
All you wanted was to add a column while planning your next sprint.
Sorry about this, guys. Some boring ads. Let's see. We don't want to hear from him. But I do want to show you guys a photo of the janitor who they claim. Here it is. Oops, that went by really fast, right? We're trying to get to.
not supposed to happen. The other thing that's not supposed to happen, they say that they arrested a maintenance worker and he is
right here. So this maintenance worker, a lot of people are lodging against the arrest of this maintenance worker. So this guy was arrested. He has like $1 million or so bail. A lot of people said the attorney that's representing him is saying that bail is outrageous. This man that has no criminal record, his family is rallying against him. Rallying for him. They feel like he's the fall guy. Now, it feels as though the sheriff is trying to find a fall guy to pin all of this on to make them out to be the bad guy. And what a lot of law enforcement are saying that they shouldn't have a person like a maintenance man or a worker be in a jail by themselves. Usually they're accompanied by some type of jail officer or prison guard or something like that. So it was very odd in this situation to say that this maintenance man was there by himself in a cell without anyone accompanying him. So a lot of people are saying this is kind of like a plot to pin it all on this man, when in reality, he's not the person that's really not the person that really is at fault. That they think that it's really law enforcement that's to be blamed, but they're trying to pin it on this man.
supposed to be an accomplice, and he's the one that cut the water off in the cell, which allowed the inmates to take the pipes apart and go out. Now, why at midnight do you have a maintenance worker in the cell area for any reason, unescorted, with no one in the housing area? And if there's no one in the housing area with the inmates, who let the civilian in? He says, the civilian says, I guess he's a maintenance worker, plumber or something. He's in the building. He's called to the area because he says that there was a report that the toilet was clogged. The toilet was clogged. And he said he spoke to an officer and he went in, but there was no work order associated with this clogged toilet. Now, if It's 12 o'clock at night and the toilet's clogged. We're not dealing with this until the morning. So I'm not calling a maintenance person up to the floor because of a clogged toilet on the midnight shift.
Right. And this man that's speaking, he is an experienced retired officer. So he's speaking from his expert experience. And he's saying the whole situation doesn't make sense. First and foremost, you got this maintenance man coming at 12 a.m. at night, which makes no sense. There's no work order, which is procedurally done when there is an issue that needs to be fixed. And then what's the urgency? Like he's saying, why would you have a maintenance man come at 12 a.m.? You would normally wait until daylight hours when, you know, there's more people, more staff available, there's security. Also, a staff member like this, like a maintenance man, would be accompanied by a prison guard. So he thought that was also odd that this maintenance man was allowed to just go into this area, which again, people are questioning whether this is really the story. It sounds as though, because there's a lot of corruption that is involved in this law enforcement. So it sounds as though that's not the real story. It sounds like a cover up, that this maintenance man really was not the real person, the real culprit that's involved. But I feel like they bullied him and they threatened this man to take the fall for internal mishaps of law enforcement. Because again, we're going to look at a backstory of one of these inmates, and I'll show you the history of corruption that goes on with this law enforcement.
And why is there a maintenance guy roaming the building at 12 o'clock at night anyway? If you don't have enough money to hire officers to work the housing areas, how do you have money in the system to hire a maintenance person to be there at 12 o'clock at night? I don't understand that. So there's so many things that are wrong with this scenario from a correctional point of view. It's embarrassing. It's embarrassing for me as a correctional officer or former correction officer to hear this story. It makes us look crazy. And the people that are in charge, they should resign. You know, they're coming out with their Class A uniforms. You know, they have all these stars and bars on their collars and things like that.
And that woman that you just seen that was looking quietly and didn't say anything, this lady right here, let's go back to her. Let's play it real quick.
It makes us look crazy. And the people that are in charge, they should resign. You know,
right here, this lady right here with the bun, she is the chief there. And there's a lot of corruption surrounding this woman. And to try to cover this up. Oh, hi, Crystal. You're from Louisiana. I hope you're still here. Maybe you can shed some background on New Orleans or Louisiana if you're from Louisiana. That's crazy. Oh, you're from Derrida, Louisiana. Okay. But this chief right here, she is known for a lot of corruption, basically. She's involved in a lot of messy stuff and a lot of cover-ups. And she's basically up for election. And a lot of people are saying this corrupt sheriff, her shady practices, her poor leadership, her lack of taking initiative to repair a lot of the faulty condition of this jail is the result of this whole escape. And so it seems like her and the staff that are involved in law enforcement are trying to pin this on a janitor, which the whole situation makes no sense because, like this experienced correctional officer says, it doesn't make sense and it's not the norm for a jail to allow a maintenance man to come in at 12 a.m., number one, without a work order and not be accompanied by a jail staff guard. These individuals who are staff members like janitors and so forth, they're from the outside. They're not trained to work with jail inmates. They're not, that's not their specialty. They're from the outside. They're just coming in to do their job and leave. So for them to not be accompanied by a jail guard was literally gross negligence on the part of the chief staff there, the law enforcement, and this chief officer here, sheriff.
You know, they're coming out with their Class A uniforms. You know, they have all these stars and bars on their collars and things like that. They should be ashamed to show their faces. I'm gonna be honest with you. The person who's in charge, I guess, is the sheriff. I hope that she doesn't run for re-election because she shouldn't be elected to any type of law enforcement position if she's running her jail like this. And now they're trying to scramble around and find out what went wrong. What went wrong is that your jail is dysfunctional. The level of dysfunctionality is obscene. So hopefully they'll catch all these people that escaped.
The best way.
So that was a really good video, guys, from an experienced correctional officer who was analyzing all of the mishaps and the gross negligence that happened here. But I want to turn your attention now to one of the 10 inmates who is out at large. Basically, right now, the current status is that the officers have recaptured at least 8 of the 10 inmates who have escaped. But there are 2 that are dangerous and that are at large. One of them is Antoine Massey, but one of them is Derek Groves. And I want to talk in particular about Derek Groves because he in particular, there's a lot of sadness that's in his family as it relates to law enforcement. And a lot of people are afraid for his safety because of that. Now, Derek Groves, this young man was born into tragedy and the corruption of law enforcement. A lot of people in his family, they're afraid that when he gets arrested, he will be unalived, that the officers plan to unalive him. And here's why. So when he escaped, the law enforcement went to his mother's home and they took his mother away from the home. And the other family members were looking for his mother. And apparently they couldn't find her. And they found out later on when she was returned that she told the family members that the officer said, you know, where is your son? If you're involved, you're going to go to jail. You're going to be in trouble. And when we find your son, we're going to unalive him. So a lot of people have been afraid. They are saying they feel like their son, family member is going to be unalived. And let's just go into the background of the corruption that went on. Now, Derek Groves, before he was born, his grandmother was unalived by law enforcement. One of the chief officers was involved in a lot of corruption. And he was, the officer was going around beating people. He beat one of Derek Groves' grandmother's sons, which would be his uncle, beat his uncle. And Derek Groves' grandmother was getting tired of that. You know, she was tired of seeing boys be beat by this officer, her son being beat by this officer. So she reported this officer to the authorities. And when she did that, that sparked an enrage in this officer. So he basically told another officer that he was going to get her unalived. And so he put a hit out on Derek Groves' grandmother when he was not born yet. And there was a man that came, and while Derek Groves' grandmother was in her yard, they shot her multiple times and in the head, and she was unalived. Well, that was before he was born, but when he was born into this, his family members were still, you know, advocating very heavily for his grandmother, and they filed a lawsuit against this man, the officer. The officer was eventually convicted and put on death row. He was basically had the death penalty ruled against him, basically. And so he was facing the death penalty. And President Biden, of all people, y'all, President Biden basically took off the death penalty and basically converted his sentence to a life sentence, which is crazy, guys. That's insane that Biden would do that when he was over here trying to pledge for these laws to protect, minorities against excessive force. But then you turn around and you remove the death penalty from an officer who brutally put a hit out on an elderly woman who was Derek Groves' grandmother. Isn't that insane, the corruption that was going on in New Orleans? But let's read what these people had to say about this background story. This occurred back in 1994. So Derek Groves' story, let's read it here. She can tell it better than I can. So she said in 1994, New Orleans was still raw from the crack era, bleeding through the cracks of corruption and survival. In a city known for music, faith, and parades, a different kind of rhythm was pulsing through the NOPD, one built on kickbacks, brutality, and backdoor executions. At the center of it all, Len Davis, a police officer with a badge and a body count and a God complex, he didn't just abuse his authority, he monetized it. And when Kim Groves, a Black mother and community member, witnessed David assaulting a man in cold blood, she did something people in her neighborhood weren't supposed to do. She filed a complaint. In less than 24 hours later, she was dead, y'all. In less than 24 hours later. Isn't that crazy? Oh my God. Let me see if I can find a picture of her, because that is crazy, guys. Like, never in a million years. And her mother, Kim Groves, she was 32 years old, mother living in the lower Ninth Ward when she was killed by a man named Paul Hardy on October 13, 1994. Dang, one day before Jasmine Grove's 13th birthday. And Jasmine Grove is I believe, the mother of Derek Grove. Oh my God, that's sad. Jesus, y'all, this story is crazy. Can you believe it? His own grandmother. Oh my God. Holds her daughter the memorial for Jasmine, for Kim Groves. I want to see if I can find a. This whole story is crazy, y'all. That's why I wanted to get into it, because like if you don't live in New Orleans, you don't know the crazy stuff that really goes on. Okay, let me try to get a picture, y'all. That's why I've been looking for this picture while I read it. Okay, because a picture is worth 1,000 words. So while I read this, I'm going to go ahead and put up their pictures so you know who I'm talking about. So here, where my mouse is, I'm circling here on the left. This is Kim Groves. This is Derek Groves' grandmother. And to the right is Louise, the officer who put a hit out on her life. The corrupt officer who was involved in a lot of criminal activity, who basically had somebody kill her because she basically filed a complaint against him. That's Len Davis, the officer. So let's continue reading this while you guys see his photo. And Kim Groves here to the left. So let me see if y'all can hear me. Okay, you guys can. Okay. So Len Davis, upon learning about the complaint, he used his position to contract a known drug dealer to carry out the hit. A mother silenced a warning sent. The Department of Justice would eventually uncover a web of extortion, false arrests, and killings. David was sentenced to death in 1996, a sentence later converted to a life sentence in federal prison in 1998. And that was due to the fault of, they claim Biden did it, but I don't know. Biden wasn't even the president in 1998. So I don't know where that rumor came about that they said Biden was involved in converting his prison sentence to life. But I digress. Another thing too, guys, because Len Davis was involved in a lot of corruption, actually, he was already being investigated. And so they actually were putting, they were listening in on his calls, on his conversations already. So they had recordings of him talking to other officers planning this hit, which I don't understand why they didn't intervene at that time already to stop this planned attack on Kim Groves. But it makes no sense to me. Anyways, but the story didn't end there, because Grove had a grandson. His name was Derek Groves, and Derek Groves is, again, one of the men at large. I showed you his photo earlier. But in the streets, they called him Woo, which is W-O-O. He was born 1997. Derek Groves never knew peace. It's sad. Derek Groves was born into chaos. It's so sad to be born into that type of chaos as a kid, y'all. He didn't grow up with bedtime stories. He grew up with whispers about his grandmother, okay? About the cop, about the execution ordered with government authority, and about the silence that followed. Imagine, that's just so terrible to be ordered, to be born into something like that. you being a child, they're saying, hey, the cops put a hit out on your grandma. That's why you don't have your grandma in your life. And every year they're doing these memorial services. And Kim Grove is kind of known as a legend in New Orleans. Until this day, she's still known as a legend. A lot of people celebrate and do memorials for her death. She's well known and well celebrated in New Orleans. And by 2018, Wu had become something else. He was quiet, he was calculated, he was cold, allegedly. And on Mardi Gras Day, while the city danced through bourbon and brass, he hunted. This is what people say, okay? 4 people were shot, 2 killed, 2 critically wounded. According to federal sources and street rumors alike, the deceased were relatives of Len Davis, y'all. Oh my God. So you had this kid born hearing about his grandma being unalived by police. And because he had been born into this and he'd been year after year after year told about the death, and this man, Len Davis, y'all, being the fault of it, he went out on a mission to hunt down Officer Len Davis's relatives. That is crazy, y'all. This story is insane. Okay? Insane. That's why I wanted to talk to you about it. So anyway, let's keep reading, okay? I got to read that again because this is crazy. So 4 people were shot, 2 killed, and 2 critically wounded. According to federal sources and street rumors alike, the deceased were relatives of Len Davis, y'all, the guy who put a hit out on his grandma. That's crazy. So he literally was cold and calculated. He strategized this thing as a kid all the way till he became an adult, allegedly. His legacy walking upright until Wu allegedly tore it down. What should have been another headline about black on black crime turned into whispers again. Because the streets knew this wasn't random. This was retribution. Crazy, y'all. Now, the thing is, now in this picture, I don't know if y'all think so, but I think so. Len Davis kind of looked Hispanic here. No, Len Davis was a black officer, and he wasn't the only officer involved in corruption, right? But of course, they wanted to pin it on the only black officer in the ward at the time. I don't know if he was the only one, but at least that was involved in corruption. So the white officers got away with all the stuff they were doing, but they weren't going to let the black man get involved, get away with it, and we already know what that's, about. Now, conviction and incarceration. Let's talk about that. So after years of legal proceedings, Derek Wu Groves was convicted on October 18, 2024. That was just last year for the 2018 Mardi Gras shootings that claimed the lives of Jamar Robinson and Byron Jackson. He was found guilty on 2 counts of second-degree murder and 2 counts of attempted second-degree murder and was sentenced to life in prison. But just months into a sentence, Wu vanished again, this time from behind bars, y'all. He vanished in the jail. Now, let's tell you something more about this young man. Now, when he was charged, you guys, for the Mardi Gras crimes, it took many times of prosecuting the same case before he was eventually convicted. Because before, they had failed several times in trying to convict him. So after multiple trials, they had finally convicted him last year. Okay. And people still question whether he was really guilty of these shootings. They feel like the law enforcement pinned it on him. And the reason why they feel like that is simply because, the reason why, this is Derek Groves right here, but the reason why, people are kind of skeptical is because after Kim Groves was unalived by Officer Len Davis hitman, the drug dealer, the family eventually, while, Derek Groves was witnessing this as a child, they had won a pretty hefty lawsuit, and the county or the New Orleans had to pay millions and millions of dollars to, I think it was like 20 million, I think it was. Don't quote me on that, but I think the family won a pretty hefty award of about 20 million or more for the murder of their sibling, Kim Davis. So they have a pretty hefty, large amount of money that they won from New Orleans. And that was a significant blow to New Orleans because New Orleans is already a very impoverished community. And so that took away from a lot of the law enforcement's income, and they had to suffer a significant loss in pay. While they're already underpaid as it is, a lot of these officers have to take side jobs. Like They work Uber and other side jobs just to survive because they're already very significantly underpaid as it is. And now they're suffering and losing more in their pay because Derek Groves' family has secured a pretty hefty award from their lawsuit against the county and against the city because of the brutal murder of Kim Davis and at the fault of one of their own law enforcement, Len Davis. So it appears as though law enforcement had a vendetta against the Grove family. So a lot of people are very skeptical about this charge being pinned on Derek. They think that it was just pinned on him as a revenge because of the family and their deep roots in the lawsuit and different stuff like that. So some people question whether he is even guilty at all. So that's another question. But let's go. I digress. Let's talk about the Great Escape. So May 16, 2025, Groves became one of 10 inmates to escape from the New Orleans Parish Justice Center in a meticulously planned jail break. The men removed a toilet sink unit, crawled through the utility space, and a loading dock. Now he's one of the few that is escaping, and he has way more. Meanwhile, guys, let's talk about this. Okay, so authorities suspect outside help. A jail maintenance worker has been arrested for allegedly assisting under coercion. Surveillance footage confirmed Groves exited with the group, but no leads have brought them closer to him since. Meanwhile, surviving members of Len Davis' family have reportedly gone into hiding following Groves' escape. Some, according to law enforcement sources, have been relocated out of state and placed under federal watch due to fears that Wu's retribution may not be over because, y'all, Derek Groves is trying to go after anybody affiliated with Len Davis who killed his grandma, y'all, that he never got to see. This is crazy, guys. This is something out of a movie, okay? This isn't just a story about revenge. It's about memory, about what happens when a community is left to fend for itself, while the very people meant to protect them orchestrate their executions. It's about what happens when accountability never comes, so someone brings it to themselves. Len Davis had a badge, and Wu had grief. He was born into grief, okay? One used the system to kill, and the other used the street to balance the scale. Man, we just saw this with the Rodney Hinton case where he ran over an officer after finding out that his son was unlawfully shot down by police. So it seems like people are out here trying to get their own retribution because they feel like the justice system is flawed. And when the system has appeared to lose its integrity, then people take justice into their own hands. But this is crazy that this story has such a twist to it, right? The writer takes no sign, only presents the facts. And visual work available here. Let's see. This is crazy, though. Guys, my gosh. Woo-hoo-hoo. Oh, okay. So anyways, and his grandma, when she was unalive, guys, she was only 94. So he was born 97. So she was in 94. Sorry, guys. He was born in 97 and his grandmother was unalived in 1994 by Len Davis. But again, he was born into this. So his family members and people, his mother and so forth, was born into the grief of the loss of his grandmother. And he had to hear this all throughout his childhood. So it built this anger in him to get revenge. And when he got older, around 2018 is when he started to target the people who are related to Len Davis. Okay. That's crazy. Shot 4 people unalive, 2, and critically wounded 2. He had a very focused, centered, direct hit on the people he wanted to take out. My God. Wow. Oh my God. Oh. And now there's a lot of people that are rooting for this guy. They're like, I hope he never gets caught. If you go online and you look up this guy, there's different people who have done stories on him, and they're hoping for him to get away with what happened. Dang, y'all, it's crazy. We're gonna get into the rest of this, but I'm actually speechless by this story. This story has me literally speechless. But there's people that are rooting for him right now. Now, because this family has recovered over $20 million because of the lawsuit, they have a lot of money that they can give to Groves to get out of town. And he has some experience with escaping before, so he kind of knows his way around, and his family has a lot of money to supply him with so that he could travel out of the country. So, I don't know where he is, but if he was smart, he would have left the country. If he's smart, because his family probably more than likely gave him money to get out of Dodge. And that's why the police ended up capturing his own mother, y'all. They took his mother into jail, threatening her, saying, if we don't find your son, we're going to kill him. They literally told his mom that they were going to kill Derek if they find him, allegedly. That is what his family members are saying. So they don't want their family member to be caught. They probably gave him some of that $1 million or so, $20 million that they won, from this lawsuit. And more than likely, he's got out of Dodge by now, okay? But a lot of people are hoping he gets away with it. It's crazy, guys. It's so crazy. But let's see. There's some more that I wanted to read about this. So Kim Groves, she was actually 32 years old when she was unalived. She was a mother of 3. She was killed by a hitman hired by former NYPD Len Davis in 1994. And the murder was a retaliation for her witnessing Davis and his partner physically assaulting a teenage boy in her neighborhood and filing a complaint to the police, y'all. The hitman, Paul Hardy, was hired by Davis to commit the murder. Kim Groves was planning her daughter Jasmine's birthday when she was unalived. The case highlighted police corruption and brutality in New Orleans, and it has been subject to ongoing memorial events of advocacy efforts. So again, they have made this grandmother into a legend. They have every year they do events in her memory. Actually, I do want to show you guys a photo of Jasmine Davis I said Jasmine Davis. Sorry, guys. Jasmine Grove as an adult. Jasmine Grove is the daughter of Kim Davis, and I actually will go into that really quickly here to show you how she looks now. Right here. So we have a photo of Jasmine Grove as now as adult, but she was 13 years old when her mother was unalived. So imagine she did not have a parent as a teenager because her mother was brutally shot in the head multiple times by a hitman from a law enforcement. So her life has always been truly compromised. It's sad. So imagine what David Grove had to see, Jasmine Grove holds her daughter, Euphoria Anthony, during a memorial service for Jasmine's mother, Kim Groves, who was murdered in 1994 by a hitman by NYPD, Len Davis. So here they do a memorial service every year. You can see she has gray hair, so she's older now. But this young lady, imagine every year since she was 13, had to do a memorial service for her mother, who she had a very short period with, okay? That's crazy. Jasmine, the daughter of Kim Groves, hosted a 30th and final memorial celebration for her mother on Sunday afternoon at the Fred Hampton Free Store in Lower Ninth. The event doubled as a birthday celebration for Jasmine Grove, who turned 43 on Monday. Wearing a pink birthday sash, she thanked everyone for attending. Isn't that crazy? She's only 43, and look how gray her hair is. That's still kind of somewhat of a younger age. I mean, yeah, 43 people would say is really old, but to have that much gray hair, she looked like she was 50s or so. She said my mom was actually planning my birthday when she got killed. That's how close in time this tragedy happened. Her birthday, her 13th birthday, was being planned. So imagine she's now 43, and every year she has to relive that around her birthday time. That's crazy, y'all. The memorial celebration was small and intimate, with approximately 15 people, including family, friends of the Groves, attending to pay their respects. And imagine Derek Grove had to grow up into this. He had to, every year he went to this memorial service for a grandmother he never got to meet because of law enforcement unaliving her. So her mother was 32 years old, single mother of the 3, living in the Lower Ninth Ward when she was unalived by the hitman Paul Hardy in 1994. One day before Jasmine Grove's 13th birthday, y'all, Hardy was hired then New Orleans Police Department. Hardy was hired by then New Orleans Police Department officer Len Davis to commit the murder. Dang. And Kim Groves have witnessed Davis and his partner physically assaulting a teenage boy she knew in the neighborhood and filed a complaint to the police. The word got back to Davis, and he began planning revenge against her in within less than a day, y'all. And he was convicted in 1996. He was on death row, but he was eventually sentenced to death row, but he was resentenced to life. Wow, that's crazy. It seems like stuff we already read though. Jasmine said she had been having these memorials to raise awareness about what happened to her mother and police corruption and brutality in New Orleans. Her great aunt and great grandmother began hosting memorials in 1994, and they picked up the torch, and she picked up the torch from them. So after her great grandparents passed away, she continued these annual events. So you would have to think that Derek Groves had to see this every year, that his grandma is having this memorial that he never got to meet because she was unalived by the officers. And of course, his mother had to share with him what happened to his grandmother. And that spewed and birthed a lot of hatred into this child when he's growing up, because he has to hear this all the time, which again embedded this anger of revenge inside of him. Oh my gosh, guys, this is crazy. Oh my gosh. Wow. They said the reason I do this is so people can remember my mother for not just being the lady that Len Davis unalived. She said, I want you to know the mother of the neighborhood, the mother who raised 3 children on her own, the mother who said, hey, I'm going to take a stand. I'm going to take care of my neighborhood. And again, a mother who was not feared but respected in the neighborhood because of that love. Jasmine Groves told Barrett that she's discontinuing the memorials. Wow, she's not going to do them anymore. Why not? Because she wants to direct her energy towards Supreme Mothers of Joy, a nonprofit that she started this year with her friend Christina Joy to support single parents. Oh, it's kind of sad she's not going to do these memorials anymore, but I think she's kind of transferring it over in a different way. She says she's trying to find the resources to build a museum in front of her family home to honor the people who have lost their lives to police violence. I think she shouldn't stop the memorials, but I get that she's trying to turn it into something more positive, because I guess it's also very sad that every year around her birthday, she has to remember the tragic loss of her own mother before she even turned 13. I think she was 12, turning 13 at the time. That's why I want them to know Kim Groves, that legend that said, hey, I'm not having it. No corruption, nowhere, no turning to the left cheek. We are one village. That's just my next door neighbor's child. That's mine too. Sorry, that's not just my next door neighbor's child. That's mine too. So they were a community that worked together. She said that she does not feel safe with the possibility of the consent decree ending. She said, oh, wait, let's hear this. It says that at the memorial, Jasmine addressed the city and U.S. Department of Justice request on September 27 to begin the process of ending the NOPD's federal consent decree, which has been in place since 2013. She said she does not feel safe with the possibility of the consent decree ending. She said that the consent decree protected the citizens and had to make the police accountable. Jasmine said, I feel like it shouldn't be taken out of place. It's so sad. And a lot of people who live here, they have no choice because they don't have money and funds to live elsewhere. And they're not protected. They're targeted and hunted down by police. So this is a family member of Derek Grove. And like I said, a lot of people are rallying for Derek Grove, who is still on the run. They're hoping that he doesn't get found. And, you know, they're hoping that he's escaped. But he has a lot of resources. A lot of people the family member has millions of dollars that they recovered from this lawsuit. So there is some speculation that they believe that money has probably been given to him, or some money has been given to him to be able to escape to another country or so. They're hoping that's the case, or maybe a family member is hiding them. But I know they captured his mom and was basically threatening her. But it appears as though now she has been let go. And again, this guy, Antoine Macy, he has his own stories. Again, like I was saying before, Antoine Macy had to see his own father unalived in front of him. So he had some other skeletons and stuff in his life that really messed him up. This person said, I hope this for Derek Groves. I know he isn't perfect, but he was dealt a messed up hand in life. I really hope he gets away. And that's what a lot of people feel. They want him to be free. Old video of Derek Groves surfaces driving while spitting a freestyle. He remains on the run after escaping jail last night. Let's look at this. People that came from the front and the back, dangin', I want the side though. I never rat, they could beat me up, dang, and had me a platform. This is shit that I signed to. Young and I had to remind you.
You go on Instagram, going live, but you ain't showing a nigga where to find you. I got the things that can find you. We had 100 shots when we ran over. You looking like a nigga stand over. I open your tie like a can opener. Nigga smoking pot, never ran sober. I'm in the night on the back street. When you kick out and run like an athlete. People swinging in the Tahoe. I guess they heard me selling Rollo. The people that came from the front and the back, dang, and I went the side though. I never ran, nigga beat me up, dang, and had me a blindfold. This is shit that I signed to. Young and I had to remind you. You go on Instagram, going live, but you ain't showing a nigga where to find you. I got the things that can find you.
It is so sad because he never stood a chance, y'all. He never stood a freaking chance. He was born into tragedy. He was born June 1997, June 19th, 1997. So he's still relatively young. He's what's that, y'all? Y'all good at math, right? I think he's about 20 something, almost 30. So what? He's about, I don't know how old he is. I think, he's 28. He hasn't even reached 30 yet. And he's already facing a life in prison. Born into this tragic situation. It's just so sad, y'all. Crazy to me. This person said, Lord, I'm too invested into the Derek story. My cousin sent me the story about his grandma being unalive on Tubi. Really good. What? There's a movie about him on Tubi, y'all. Really good watch. It's slow at first. Once it gets to the story, it's very interesting. Now I'm on YouTube watching stories about him. His poor grandma was unalive for just trying to get justice. Shake my head, but death helped change corruption in New Orleans. Y'all go to Tubi and watch it. Wow, so it appears that he has a story in Tubi. It's called Natural Born Killer. So if you guys want to see that on Tubi, you can kind of get a documentary about him. The Many Bodies of Derek Groves, the most dangerous escape inmate. It's like it seems like he was raised up to seek revenge on behalf of his grandma. And it showed you how grief can pass on down from generation to generation to generation, y'all. This person says, I went down a rabbit hole yesterday. David Groves Woove is one of the men still at large. He was born in 1997. In 1994. Oh, we were talking about this already. That's kind of like redundant. But let's read what this girl had to say, because she said something interesting. She just said this a few 8 hours ago. She said, y'all really be making a hero out of anybody. Now it's the New Orleans prison escapee Derek Groves, who gets a pass because his grandmother's death, even though he was born 3 years after his grandma was unalived by NOPD. Shaking my head. Y'all screaming, you hope they never catch him. Seriously? Completely ignoring the fact that this dude went out and shot 4 people, in which 2 of them died. Also pleaded guilty to manslaughter on 2 other killings. In a mile-long rap sheet, he's still a monster. People are literally in hiding, scared for their lives. But y'all on here screaming, y'all hope they don't catch him. Why do y'all want him free? Y'all got cold-blooded killer confused. Vigilante. They said that's not even who that man killed. The people who he shot had no connection to his grandmother's death. Oh, really? They said, I thought the murders in Mardi Gras were revenge. My homie told me the story wrong. Let me correct that part, but people still unaliving him, giving him a pass. This story is so convoluted, because some people say it was people associated with Officer Len Davis, who was his family members, and some people say it's not. So I really don't know what the real story is. This person says, yeah, I thought the same thing, but it was different situation. But people really be tripping. He murdered 4 people, so he don't care about doing it again. They said his rap sheet's so long. I thought I read he was hitman or something. But then again, it's 2025. They glorify killers. They said he's a damn serial killer. And again, we don't know if, it's so confusing, because this man went through so many trials. We don't know if he really did what he did. This story is so confusing, because the prosecutors seem to not have enough evidence against him in the first place, because they had to try him several times as it was. So I have questions about that. And then there's so many different stories about it. And this guy, he's a hot mess too. Oh gosh, guys. And this guy is a mess too. And one of them has experience. Here this is. This principal says He never lost track of his student Derek Groves, said the prison system did. So he may have spoken to Derek before his escape. What? Crazy, y'all. Wow. That's some sad stuff. Dang, y'all. Can you believe it? When you hear the backstory of this just boggles my mind. These people are already captured. Ugh. Y'all should watch the Tubi movie just to see, because I really don't know. They're saying there's so many different stories about it. They say that the murders he did was relatives of Len Davis, and now they're saying it's a whole different situation. So it's like, I don't even know. Like, these rumors are a hot mess. Derek Wu is tied to 2018 Mardi Gras shootings, the killings of 2 family members. Look, it says right here, the killing of 2 family members of a cop who murdered his grandma. So a lot of people are saying that is associated with Len Davis. So I think that might be true, allegedly. That might be true that he targeted Len Davis's family. Some people just are confused and they're spreading misinformation, but I think that's really allegedly what happened, that he targeted family members. Let's see what these people have to say in the comments. They said, well, what he did, it was necessary. Would you think you'll do something to any of my family members, then live like nothing happens? Count your days. This person says, where we come from in New Orleans, it doesn't matter if you are black or white or Mexican or Chinese. You can die here very easily. I hear gunshots all throughout the night in the 9th Ward, every night. These kids are playing Call of Duty in real life, and they don't give a F about respawning. Wow, God, this story is absolutely crazy. Let me know what you guys think about this crazy story. Like, what is your opinion about it? This one really boggles my mind, because at first I really wasn't thinking too deeply into the story. When I first heard about their escapes, I was like, okay, another few inmates escape. They're going to be found. They're not that smart. But now I hear the backstory of Derek Groves. I'm like absolutely floored that officers would be involved in the hit of his grandma, and then his whole life he has to hear about this as a kid growing up. Every year they attend this memorial service because this officer put a hit out on him, and the family had to pursue a lawsuit to recover damages because of it. It's crazy. This kid literally was born to seek revenge on behalf of his grandma that he never met. He was born into chaos. He was born into grief. It's so sad. So let me know what you guys think. Do you guys think he's going to be caught? Do you guys think he should be caught? What do you guys think he even committed those murders? Because people say it was planted on him by law enforcement, and we really don't even know how to trust these law enforcement because they're very corrupt in New Orleans. Let me know what you think. This story is a hot mess. Until later, have a good night.
She the queen, yeah, that's Queen Esquire. Legal trouble, she getting you out the fire. Another day and she solving another case, cause she litigate with dignity and grace. She the queen, yeah, that's Queen Esquire. Legal trouble, she getting you out the fire. Another day and she solving another case, cause she litigate with dignity